Not long ago, I trawled through the comment section of my videos and picked out watches that you asked my opinion on. You clearly seem to enjoy that hot take format, so here are 10 more watches that you asked me about and what I think of them. Let's dive in. Just like the last time, when I'm doing these kind of hot takes, do keep in mind that you should always choose what you like. My opinion doesn't matter. If I don't like a watch and you do, it's not a criticism of you or your taste. I even like some Hublot watches, which would get me in trouble with the Nico Leonard crowd. So you do you, always. Glasshutte Panomatic. I absolutely adore this watch. It's been on my list for the longest time. The asymmetrical but still balanced dial layout makes for an almost unique wrist experience. The model I consistently gravitate towards is the Panomatic Lunar with the moon phase, which I think is infinitely more interesting than the Power Reserve version. The movement is stunning. It's got an engraved double swan neck regulator and a micro rotor. That thing is gorgeous, and I honestly think you are getting a ton of watch for your money. Then why haven't I bought it, you ask? Two reasons. I rarely wear these dressy types of watches. I want to, but every time I've bought this kind of watch, I've ended up selling them because the price relative to the wrist time can't be justified. And second, the Lange one. The Lange one is out of reach for me. Technically, I could start saving for the next many years, but as a purchase, $50,000 or however much it costs is just mad. And my brain constantly just asks me, are you buying the Panomatic because you actually want the Lange? Which is silly because the Panomatic I actually think looks better, and from what I hear, Lange are not always the best when it comes to after-sales service. It's something that pops up when I talk to the people I know that own one or more Langes. Jaeger-leCoulte Polaris Chrono. I'm actually not a fan. The first versions that came out a couple of years ago did not have dials that I liked. The blue to me had some of the same problems that the AP1159 had when that first series rolled out. The dial, and yes, I have handled the watches in the metal, felt flat and cramped. I know there are steps and indentations and each ring is finished in a different way, but in the metal, they just don't stand out to me. The new lacquered dials are significantly better, but I just don't like fume dials. It's very much a personal preference, and I know others love fume and lacquer and the whole shebang, but to me, they solved the depth and contrast problem with the first dials and replaced it with fume, which is something that I have always ended up tiring of very quickly. Now, the regular Polaris with Fotino, on the other hand, that's the one I would go for. Rolex Oyster Perpetual. You can't go wrong with Rolex. If you avoid two-tone Rolexes, you are going to have excellent value retention as well. You get excellent build quality both inside and out. The design itself is iconic, and unlike most other entry Rolexes, you usually have quite a lot of options when it comes to dials. But I would go Aquaterra from Omega. It's an open question as to whether the Aquaterra competes with the Oyster Perpetual or the Datejust, or likely both. But in a matchup between the OP and the AT wins for me. I prefer it because it's just that bit more sporty. The OP for me is a bit on the soft side, and because it's so iconic, it also doesn't have a ton of personality. I'd say that one of the reasons the OP is so versatile is because of the very middle of the road nature of its design. There's just more character on an AT for me. Seiko Alpinist. The Alpinist is a watch you're supposed to love, and the dial has always impressed me. It's a quintessential Seiko, and like the Explorer, it's one of those Seikos that a real Seiko enthusiast should at some point at least try. But the dual crown thing is not for me. I'm happy with a crown at a different position, like on a Squale or a Seiko Willard, but two crowns, at least not in this configuration, is not for me. San Martin. San Martin are basically an AliExpress micro brand based out of China. They come with a whole lot of baggage of being a brand that makes carbon copies of current and historical models from Rolex, Tudor, and a whole lot of others. I've made clear before that I have absolutely no problem with homages as long as they are not passed off as actual Rolexes or Tudors. As long as it says San Martin on the dial, I'm fine with it. These watches mostly cost less than $500 and often closer to $150 depending on the model. For the money, it's absolutely ridiculous what you get. There's often a Seiko NH movement inside, similar to the ones you'll see in Seiko SK models. You'll get fully milled clasps, sometimes with easy extension mechanisms. The bracelets are solid. The finishing is good, a little bit on the rugged side, but tolerances, precision in terms of milling, polishing and beveling is usually to a very high standard. On some models, there'll be some quirks, like the GMT models will sometimes have 120 click bezels instead of 24 click bezels, simply because they're reusing the mechanism that they also use in a GMT or in another model. There are Swiss brands that will charge you closer to $1,500 for similar levels of quality. They will overall be better, but from $150 to $1,500, there isn't necessarily a 10 times increase in build quality. But you have to be an homage lover. If you have any problems about buying a company that very clearly makes its money by replicating other people's designs, then this brand is also not for you. Also, watches are more than build quality and value. To me, personally, there is something to be said for originality and creativity. St. Martin doesn't have a lot of a creative core. There's not a lot of people that have labored with a pencil and paper sketching out their own artistic vision. So that's what you don't get. There's very little emotion connected to these watches, but they look good and they're solid. And as to the fact that they're produced more or less 100% in China, well, high-end brands source stuff from China too. Let's not kid ourselves. The MoonSwatch by Swatch. I ended up buying my wife a MoonSwatch for her birthday. She wanted a fun watch and I got her a pink MoonSwatch. She loves the thing, but she immediately asked me if I had some other strap that I could put on because the included one was just terrible. I also like the MoonSwatch. How couldn't I? It's like the Speedy, so it's fundamentally a fun version of that watch. I hate the hype around it. I think they've gotten a little bit repetitive in terms of releases recently, and even the all-white Snoopy feels a little bit overdone. But it's a cool watch. Studio Underdog. If you don't know them, Studio Underdog is this relatively small independent type brand that makes primarily vintage dressy types of watches. Their signature thing is playful dials, from just playing with color to going all in on pizza and watermelon dials. Sometimes I think of them as an entry Nomos. Nomos is also known for a playful approach to watchmaking and dials, especially with their club lines. My favorite model from Studio Underdog, it would be the first series, the Desert Sky model. It's not something I'd splurge on. Studio Underdog make very good watches, and I think they're reasonably priced for what you get. But at just a couple of $100 under $1,000, they are not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. And they, to me, suffer from a problem similar to the Sideral from Tissot. The problem is they look cool, they stand out from the crowd, but I just have this feeling that I'll get tired of the playful designs. I worry that the playfulness will get old at some point. I'll happily pay $150 for a fun swatch, but at the price that Studio Underdog plays in, they are in the territory where I need to feel that I won't ever get tired of that playfulness. Bremont Broadsword. Bremont is a brand that doesn't get talked about a lot. They are a British watchmaker that are probably best known for their military-inspired, themed, or even actual mil-spec watches. The Broadsword is their take on a military-style field watch, so their version of a Tudor Ranger or a Rolex Explorer or Hamilton Khaki. Their watches look good, and especially when you go for these rugged, hard-wearing models, I actually quite like them. It's super wearable at 40 millimeters. I think the height, as I remember it, is around 12.5 millimeters, and the lug-to-lug is about 47 to 48 millimeters. You don't get Metas, you don't get Kosk, and I've heard people complain about pricing, but overall I think the Broadsword is worth considering if you're into that whole military field watch genre. Longines Hydroconquest. Longines make excellent watches. I'm a huge fan of the Spirit and the Spirit Zulu time. The Hydroconquest is their dive watch for the masses. The Legend Diver is a bit more niche, where the Hydroconquest lines up with watches like the Submariner or the Seamaster 300M. Compared to the Black Bays from Tudor, this is not a skin diver, but more of a classic diver. It's a little bit more beefy in terms of looks. The build quality is solid, and you get a watch that comes across as very masculine and outdoorsy and rugged. But it's also relatively easy to style, even with more business type clothing. It's not necessarily as elegant as the skin diver type watches like the Black Bay 58 from Tudor, and I overall think that's a good thing. It's definitely a watch that's worth considering. The Omega Constellation line. Oh boy. So, Tudor has the Royal, which is the 70s inspired watch that simply put is not the most popular watch in Tudor's lineup. I'd guess that it's among their least popular watches. And I think that's likely the case for the Constellation and Omega as well. Integrated bracelet watches have been all the rage for quite a while now, but Omega and Tudor have not been on that wave. The Tissot PRX was a model everybody and their sister fawned over. The CW12, the Royal Oak, the Nautilus, all of those watches have turned out to be immensely popular in recent years. But the Constellation, it doesn't get a lot of attention. The bezel design with the claws is a love it or hate it kind of design. It might end up having a revival, but generally I don't think a lot of people love it. And me, I like it sometimes. The design is really interesting because small changes can completely change the look of this watch. The blue and steel model, to me, is not good looking at all. The contrast is too much between the blue bezel and the claws. It challenges my conception of what a bezel should look like far too much. But the Meteorite version looks amazing in the metal. I would love to see the Meteorite version on a leather strap instead of the bracelet. I think that would look killer. Those were 10 more watches, quick and dirty. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think of these watches in the comments, and also let me know what other watches you'd like me to talk about, either in this brief format or in depth. Thanks for this time. Like, subscribe. Cheers.